So now I am going to introduce another one of my newer best friends. I can be best friends with everybody, okay? There's enough, the personality is big enough to just be here for all involved. Melissa Tom is from Bristow Middle School. I really began to solidify my relationship with her when I gave her a book cart full of free books that she took home and added to an already large 3-floor pile of books that she had accumulated on her own. Melissa is currently the president of CASL, the Connecticut Association for School Librarians, one of our partners on this initiative. And I spent a lot of time in her makerspace because she has one, because of course she does, and in her backyard when it is not, well, it's 40 degrees today, but it's going to be like -4 on Saturday. Melissa, thank you for being here with us and introducing our next two speakers.
Thank you. And I am so glad that you have validated that you are one of my best friends, because I felt a little hurt before when you, whatever, it's okay. I agree.
It's just a timing thing. It's all timing. It's just because I went to undergrad, but she's just been there more. It's not more love, it's longer love. That's all.
You can have many best friends. I 100% agree with that. So I appreciate your friendship and working with you professionally. I was very excited to be on the teen committee for the reading selection for this initiative. And I am so honored to introduce the two authors that I get to introduce. I was very lucky to be able to listen to one of the good ones on Libro.fm through the library program. So I got to listen to it very early on. And this book is so powerful. And I will always remember, I actually was home in Minnesota at the time, helping my mom because she was sick. And this was this was my own time. I would go out. We lived in the country. It was March and April in Minnesota, which is still pretty chilly. And I would just look forward to this time to listen to this story. And former social studies teacher, I do National History Day with students every year. There's just so much content and power in this story that you are going to talk about today. So I've been practicing your names because I do not want to pronounce them wrong. I hate it when people pronounce my name wrong. So I am very happy to introduce Maritza and Maika. Did I say them right? Yay. And they are going to talk about their wonderful book, but I want to give a little background. I pulled your biographies, and you all, we don't have time to go over all the amazing things that you have done already in your short lives, but a couple of things I wanted to highlight. So Maritza graduated from the University of Florida with a bachelor's in women's study. And the University of California with a master's in journalism, which is a very cool combination. And now if you're currently, are you still a PhD student? Is this still an ongoing thing? At the University of Pennsylvania, exploring ways to improve literacy in under-resourced communities, which is near and dear to my heart because I was a classroom teacher for 12 years, both in Phoenix and Hartford. And now I'm a middle school librarian, and literacy has been at the center of my life for many, many years. So I think that is amazing. And Maika, equally impressive. I have to read them and I underline things, be like, this is what I really want to talk about because I can't talk about everything. So Maika got a bachelor's in marketing from Florida State University and an MBA from the University of Miami, which is also a very cool combination. And are you still also currently a PhD student? At Howard Universities and doing the Communication, Culture, and Media Studies program. And I would just wish we lived closer because you would be invited like Kim is to my makerspace and we would hang out in my backyard and we would just talk about amazing things. So I'm going to turn it over to the two of you so you have as much time as possible to talk about all of your amazing things.
Yay. Thank you so much. That introduction was awesome. It was. Maritza and I are totally type A type of people. So we put together some slides. So let's hope that technology agrees with me. Let's see. See, already I'm confused. Oh, no, wait, let's see. Why is this showing up twice? Let's see. Give me one moment already. Actually, I'm just gonna All right, let's see if this is the right one. Take two. Okay.
Yes, full screen now.
All right, and you see the full screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Yes, technology is working. Okay. So that's me and Maritza, that back when I had no hair, but you know, I'm rocking a wig today. So hope you enjoy that. Okay. So what are we going to talk about today, Maritza?
Hi, everyone. Okay, so this is our little table of contents. Melissa did a wonderful job introducing us, but we love talking about ourselves. So we'll say hi, talk about our books, especially one of the good ones, of course, and then answer any questions that you might have.
All righty. So the best part of us, you know, being able to put presentations together is that we can do whatever we want. So, I mean, to a certain extent, you know, we're not going to go here. So we always love starting off with this super embarrassing picture of us and our two younger sisters. So the top, I guess, left, I never know how this works, but the top left in the orangey shirt is Maritza, top right with the head tilted is me, and the bottom two on the left and right, the one crying is our sister Jessica, and the one on the right with the huge cheeks is our sister Leyh. And we honestly don't know if they realize how often we use this picture in all of our presentations.
They have no idea.
Do they know these are the photos that you have chosen to share with the world?
No idea. No idea, but we love sharing it because, you know, when we were young readers, we looked like this and we look like we do now. And so it was really important for us to just highlight this and say, these are, you know, this is where we come from, sort of thing. All right. So fast things about us.
We are sisters, not sisters. Although we are sisters, but that's something that we get asked a lot, actually. We are actually related. I'm a Libra, which means that I'm wildly indecisive.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm a Sagittarius, which means I love to travel the world and I can be a little blunt, a lot of blunt.
We went to a lot of schools, and our nemesis include people who do not use their turn signals.
Which is highly prevalent in Miami, where we're from. But now I live in Virginia to, you know, go to school at Howard, and Maritza is in Philly for the University of Pennsylvania. So
the first thing you should know about us is that we are the children of Haitian immigrants, and not just any Haitian immigrants, mean Haitian immigrants who wouldn't let us watch TV on the weekdays. And every single weekend, we would go to the library, North Dade Regional, and we would check out the max, like 30 books each. And then we'd come home with like 120 books. Some of them would get lost. It would be fine. And, we would just basically devour these books throughout the week. For some reason, a lot of the popular children's books at the time when we were reading were about white girls with red hair. It's like totally a thing. But again, this is us. We were Black girls with black hair. And obviously there's a beauty in like being able to identify with any type of experience and just like know that you're feeling the same thing that someone else out there who doesn't look like you is feeling. But it's also great to know that like you're represented in the books that you are reading as well, that you could look at a cover and see someone who looks just like you. But we'll get back to that.
yes. Sorry if you hear the phone in the background. I'm at my parents' house and they actually have a landline and my grandma doesn't know how to turn it off. Okay, so moving on, like Maritza said, you know, we read all of these wonderful books and we saw ourselves reflected in the characters, but it would have been able to also see ourselves like actually. And so as authors, you know, fast forwarding many years, we get the opportunity to write our own books. And these characters, as you can see, they look a little bit more like us growing up. And so along with us being avid readers, we also get to be authors who have published 2 young adult novels so far. And we have the honor of speaking with you today about it. So our first book, which Maritza will get into right now, is Dear Haiti, Love Elaine.
Yes. So Dear Haiti, Love Elaine is about 17-year-old Alaine Beaupalin, who gets sent to Haiti after a prank she does at school goes terribly wrong. And while she's in Haiti, she learns more about her family history and even a family curse. And she also gets to get closer to her journalist mom, who's also laying low in Haiti after her own fiasco at work. Also, it's an epistolary novel, so it's made up of lots of different pieces of media and all that sort of thing.
Yes, one of the good ones we'll get into in just a bit, but we wanted to highlight our third book, which is called The Summer I Ate the Rich. Maritza came up with this wonderful title, but it's about 17-year-old Brielle Petitfou, who happens to be a zombie, and she joins the exclusive world of the 0.01% of the 1% and decides that she wants to unleash revenge on the people she blames for her family's pain. So this is a really exciting book. We're currently in the midst of drafting it, but that will be our third. But we're here to talk about one of the good ones, which is about 17, just turned 18-year-old Kezzy Smith, who ends up dying under mysterious circumstances while she's in police custody after attending her very first social justice rally. And to commemorate their history buff sister, her life, Happy and Jenny use Kezzy's heirloom copy of the Negro Murderers Green Book as their guide. And they travel using, the Route 66 and, the roads that are still available so that they can commemorate her. And we're biased, but we definitely think one of the good ones will leave you shook because we have this twist in it. And it's really important for us to highlight what it really means to be an ally. Oops. All right. So why did we write one of the good ones?
So social justice is the heart of this story. Kezzy is like many young and old and anything in between people today fighting for equity in our society, at school, at work, healthcare, housing, just socioeconomic status, anything. And while our story takes place largely in the 21st century, we also include characters from historical places that are related to the present day. So many of these concerns that our characters are tackling now, racism, sexism, homophobia, etc., have long been issues. And excuse me, that's something that we wanted to highlight. Also, Kezzy has a very 21st century crisis of conscience early on in the book. She's very passionate about social justice and was a successful YouTube activist, but she was also concerned about how her online activism was perhaps not enough. Like how many of us, for example, saw people posting Black squares during the summer of 2020. And while raising awareness is important and social media can definitely affect true change, Kezzy wanted to make sure that she was doing enough in the world outside of her cell phone and laptops as well, which is something that many of us grapple with now.
Yes. And one of the good ones is also about sisterhood, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And like, as we've mentioned, Maritza and I are actually sisters. So this was something that we were able to tap into within the context of the story. And, sisterhood is complicated. There are times when, we're all very tight, especially, even speaking for me, Maritza, Jessica, and our sister Lydiane, the four of us are super tight, but, we have moments where there'll be beef. And so when that happens, we might have like a separate group chat for three of us, and then one's not in there, and then each one has their various permutations. But it was really important for us to highlight these moments throughout one of the good ones to show how, even though, your siblings and your sisters are kind of variations of yourselves, there are still moments when you don't feel understood, where you don't feel heard. And so now that Kezzy is gone, Happy is really struggling with the fact that she didn't have the best relationship with her sister. And she's trying now, in the wake of everything that has happened, to kind of bridge that gap.
And typically we're terrible at titles, full disclosure. And when our editor suggested one of the good ones for this book, we were like, oh, that's perfect. That's really great, because it was a phrase that we used in the book a few times. So it felt very appropriate. So when these tragic moments happen, when another Black person is murdered at the hand of the police, or because some vigilante who thinks they have the right to take someone's life strikes, we often start hearing the same song. What were they doing wrong? Did they look suspicious? How did they speak? What kind of education did they have? And it's only after we start answering these questions that we deem a victim to be one of the good ones and worthy of being missed. But it's wrong. And in reality, none of those things will save us. And it shouldn't only be a type of person who has a right to exist safely and thrive in our society. And one might think that they're being an ally by elevating only a particular type of individual to be missed out. But again, we all deserve the right to exist. It shouldn't have to be because of where we went to school, or because we seem to be a nice person, or we looked a certain way. Like, those things shouldn't matter. It should just be our humanity. And something that, oh, go ahead, Maika.
Oh, no, I was going to say also allyship comes into play within One of the Good Ones because there are different aspects of that. Of course, we're talking about, social justice, but there are also opportunities because Kezi, our main character, is a lesbian and her family doesn't know. And so she's grappling with what it means to be a lesbian and being raised in a religious household with both of your parents being pastors and not necessarily being out because you feel like you will no longer be one of the good ones. And so our characters use the phrase one of the good ones multiple times throughout the text to really grapple with how even when you might be marginalized yourselves in certain way, you might turn around and then inflict that same kind of marginalization on another person. And so there are opportunities for the readers as well as the characters through the story to consider, if I say I'm an ally to somebody who's a part of the LGBTQ plus community, am I pulling them aside and saying, oh my God, you're so brave, but then when it comes time to advocate for them publicly, you don't really say anything? So it's really important for us throughout One of the Good Ones to highlight all of the different ways that we have our own various levels of privilege as well as marginalizations.
Oops. So this is a quote that spoke to us in our research, and it's by Victor Hugo Green, the creator of the Negro Motorist Green Book. And this quote is from the 1948 edition. It says, "There will be a day sometime in the near future when this guide will not have to be published. That is when we as a race will have equal opportunities and privileges in the United States. It will be a great day for us to suspend this publication, for then we can go wherever we please and without embarrassment."
Yes. Go ahead.
Right here, we have two versions of the Green Book from 1954 and 1940. And as you know, or as you'll know from the reading, the Green Book was originally published in 1936 up until about 1966. By Victor Hugo Green. And essentially, he just was fed up with the danger that he and his family experienced moving from New Jersey, New York to Virginia, where his wife's family lived. And then he decided to create what ultimately became known as the Bible of Black Travel, yellow pages of businesses that were either Black owned or welcoming of Black patrons, with restaurants, hotels, bars, gas stations, tourist homes, which were private homes that typically women opened up for guests to stay in their rooms for the night. And yes, go ahead.
Yes. And so we did a lot of research while we were writing about One of the Good Ones, and we can't share them all with you here for the sake of time, but we do have a mini podcast that we created that is 3 episodes long, and you can find it on our website. And I think the URL, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Maritza can find it, is maikaandmaritza.com/podcast, if I'm not mistaken, or One of the Good Ones podcast. Maritza will find it and link to it in the chat. But essentially, we use the New York Public Library Schomburg Center as a resource in our research because you can simulate what a trip was like using the Negro Motorist Green Book in the 20th century. So you might, choose a trip and start from Miami to Los Angeles, and it'll take you on the route, but you'll find that some of the routes are a little bit more roundabout than you would want. And it was because the Negro Motorist Green Book was trying to make sure that you avoided any places that might cause, embarrassment, harm, or anything like that. And it's interactive. We totally use this, and we love public libraries, and the Schomburg Center was truly a great resource for us in using this.
So if you look into Black history, you don't only find pain, although sometimes that's what it feels like, based on like what we see highlighted and elevated all the time. But you'll also find joy, bravery, mischief, pride, power, ingenuity, fearlessness, courage, all of these things. And we wanted to make sure to incorporate some of these aspects of Black history into One of the Good Ones. So here are 2 such examples that we write about in the story in some way. So the first one is the 761st Tank Battalion, also known as the OG Black Panthers. And they were an all-Black tank battalion made up of some of the best soldiers in the Army. So at the time, the United States was abroad fighting fascism and evil, while our own military was still racially segregated and didn't desegregate until after World War II. But nevertheless, these soldiers were fighting hard for this country because they knew that it was their country too, and they and their loved ones recognized that they were fighting for a better life back home in America, as well as what was happening around the world, which they called the Double Victory campaign. Their motto was "Come out fighting," and they did just that. They were in major battles in the war, including the Battle of the Bulge, and many of the members went on to earn really prestigious honors, the Medal of Honor, Silver Stars, Purple Hearts, and we highlighted some of their history in one of the good ones in a very personal way for some of our characters.
Yes, and we also wanted to give a shout out to Stagecoach Mary, aka Mary Fields. And when we were doing research about this story, it was just so wonderful to come across her, because you don't really get sometimes information about the women who were so instrumental within history. And she essentially, as the legend has it, is that she was a grounds taker at a convent, and then her, or excuse me, I said grounds taker, a groundskeeper at a convent, and then her and maybe like one of the other groundskeepers got into it, and they drew their guns at each other, and then they kicked her out of the convent. And then she essentially went off on her own, and she became a part of, you know, what we now know as like the mail service. And she was a star route mail carrier in the United States, and the first African American female star route carrier. And, you know, the story about her is that she was like a gun wielding, alcohol drinking, sometimes pants wearing woman, you know, in the late 1800s to early 1900s. And she was a total, you know, boss. And it was just wonderful to hear about her. And I wish that we could highlight more folks like this. So as we were writing one of the good ones, it was really important for us to also highlight that, yes, there are some really hard moments, but there's also a lot of joy and a lot of fun happening too. So hopefully we gave a good blend of that throughout. So thanks for dealing with our type A-ness. We hope this presentation has given you a few things to think about, and now we'll open it up for any questions.
Wow, that is awesome. And again, as a former social studies teacher, I just love all your connections to primary sources and your research. And like you said, those stories that aren't often known, they're not in the textbook. And if you don't go looking for them, you're not really going to find out about them. We don't have a lot of time, but we do have one question that came up in the chat. And I actually had this written down in my own notes, so I'm excited somebody asked it. And it's, what was it like to work with another writer? Because you partner write, and I can imagine that's a little challenging. So what were some successes and some challenges, if you want to talk about that a little bit?
Go ahead, Maritza.
Okay, so we typically have pretty different writing styles. I'm what they call a plotter, and Maika's a pantser. She writes by the seat of her pants. But in order for us to write together, Maika had to jump on the plotting train so that we would be able to know what the story was going to be about, because we can't read each other's minds. But it's been really great. And luckily we have very similar sensibilities. And if we do ever have any issues about the story, which don't come up often, we'll just like duke it out and like put our best presentations about why our idea is the best, and then we'll go with whoever is most passionate, because we know it'll be better for the story.
It's usually my idea. I'm kidding.
It's not so. I didn't want to
get a little sibling jab in there, but too funny. Thank you so much. This has been so awesome. We're just so excited. Like, Kim really just did a wonderful job of coordinating and just like reaching out to us and making sure that we were on task. So we wanted to publicly give her a shout out for doing the thing. And thank you so much for your attention, and as well for having us again.
Thank you. And thank you, Kim, for letting me introduce them and talk to them a little bit. This was a really fun event. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
everyone. Bye.
Yes, thank you, Maika and Maritza and Melissa. And I mean, growing up as a reader, you know, I get it, you know, like a lot of the characters in my favorite books didn't look anything like me. And I think that's why I'm such a reader of young adult, because it's just like doing the darn thing with regards to just all of these fantastic books that, you know, have characters that I wish I was able to read as a kid, but they didn't exist because we were all kids reading them. And now here we are, and y'all are writing, and I'm a librarian, and this is so great. I love your book. And while you were talking, I sent a text to my baby sister and said I love her, because I just had to. So thank you so much